kicking off this week with a new Spike Lee joint, and the timing of this, while under unfortunate circumstances, could not be better in some senses, because this is a time where we need to be elevating Black voices in the filmmaking community, in the world in general, and hearing Black stories and seeing Black stories. And so to have Spike Lee, who is such a powerful figure in film, have a new film come out right now, well, people are going to watch, and people who may not have been open to watching it before are probably going to pay attention. And I'll say, if you are going to take a moment and, go through a Spike Lee filmography, there are a couple other films in his canon that, definitely are worth educating yourself on, even as recently as Black Klansman from 2018. Like, what a just a well-done film. So if you are new to the Spike Lee filmography, welcome. You're going to have a lot to watch. Some of it amazing. Some of it, like any filmmaker, like maybe might not resonate as much for you. And the other thing I think I'll note is that maybe it makes you feel uncomfortable, because it is these are stories from a very distinct perspective. That is something that you admire in filmmakers, right? Is that they have such a unique voice, and that immediately, like, oh, this is a blank film. And it doesn't mean that they're all the same. It's just they have a perception of the world that they are able to convey to others. And that is why they are storytellers. I think especially right now, when everybody who is not Black is dealing with confronting, systemic racism and maybe like unconscious biases, or in some cases maybe conscious biases, you are having to do a lot of self-reflection right now. And Spike Lee is hard-hitting and is someone who doesn't let you off the hook for that. So I encourage you to actually just open yourself up to the experience. So let's talk about Da 5 Bloods, which is the film. I don't even know if I mentioned it. The film is called Da 5 Bloods, and it is on Netflix. And it's the story of 4 African-American vets from the Vietnam War who returned to Vietnam, and it's actually the story of, it's almost like a treasure hunt, and there's a lot of history involved in it, interwoven into it. There was one flag that went off in my mind when it did first start, and that is, please let this not be racist against Asians, because like we, especially people of color, need to uplift each other right now. People of color need to examine their biases towards each other, even, and so that was one of my fears with it. There were moments of it that made me feel like a little bit uncomfortable in terms of that, but then I'm like, okay, well, given the history of Vietnam and everything going on there, like maybe this is more accurate, like we can't shy away from that part of it. Like it just for me as a personal moment of like, ugh. Overall, I think it's like a good, strong film from Spike Lee. And I will say it maybe isn't the most innovative of his films in the however many years, but it still like puts it miles ahead of where many other filmmakers are at. So the fact that it's accessible and it's on Netflix and, it's like well produced, performances are great. Like there shouldn't be anything holding you back from watching Da 5 Bloods. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. And then I was on the fence if I should review anything else this week, but I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. So the other film I have is The King of Staten Island, which is a Pete Davidson movie. And Pete Davidson is very good at playing Pete Davidson. And I've said that before. We had a film earlier this year called Big Time Adolescence, and this is in a very similar vein. I feel like this is, if you're familiar with Pete Davidson's story, none of this is going to feel particularly surprising to you. It's, he plays a kid from Staten Island, and his father is a firefighter who dies during service. And Pete Davidson's real father is an actual fireman who did die during September 11th on the job. And so I think this is definitely material that is close to Pete, and therefore, of course, he can tap into those emotions because he has firsthand experience with them. Marissa Tomei plays his mother, which is slightly disconcerting because it doesn't feel like she's old enough to be his mother. But here we are. Bill Burr plays a suitor for his mother. It's fine. This was my only other comment about Da 5 Bloods, and I say it to King of Staten Island as well. Like, they're a little long. They're a little bit long, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we are living in this, world where really you can just pause and get away. And so I'm like, are we, not saying that editors and filmmakers need to adjust for that, but there is something different about, being captive in a theater for X amount of time and not being able to like get up and do whatever. And sometimes I feel like it's not a good thing. Like I want to be immersed. And sometimes I feel like maybe like a King of Staten Island is something where if you go too long, like I don't mind that I can walk away for a minute and not have to miss anything. So it's not to say it's bad. It's just, I think it's the world we're living in. This was never meant to be on, demand. It was supposed to be out in theater. So I get it. And Da 5 Bloods, though, I'm like, this was always probably going to be on streaming. So But this is one of my problems with also, super established directors is like at a certain point, nobody tells them to cut things. Like Scorsese films are like 80 hours now, and hopefully you develop a relationship with an editor who is willing to be like, no, we really should like cut this down. Like you don't have to keep adding time to a film just because you can, or you don't have to use every bit of footage you have just because you can. So King of Staten Island, this movie should probably just be called Daddy Issues. Overall, though, like it was fine. I didn't dislike it. Again, Pete Davidson is very watchable. He is somebody who feels like he should be a creep, but there is something endearing about him, at least for now. I think some of it's like the vulnerability. I think it's a lot of him processing his own emotions in this. I don't want to take away from the larger conversation around Black voices, and it's also Pride Month, and watching a film about a straight cisgender white dude, which these are assumptions I'm making, but to the best of my knowledge, like that is where he tends to stand. It's one of those moments where we're like, well, do I watch this? But at the same time, like, that shouldn't take away from wanting an escape or just needing to like check out for 2.5 hours, which is what this film is. So overall, like it's fine. There are points where I laugh. There are a couple poignant moments. And I think the thing I would like to see from Pete Davidson is for him to grow out of playing these types of characters and see what other range he has. Because I think he does a great job at, the playing himself, but it'd be kind of cool to see, I don't want to keep seeing the same stories over and over and over from him. So I'm going to give it 3.7 out of 5.